Welcome back to the podcast. I have Amit Tishler back. He was on recently talking about Eden Frost from Mad Cave. This time around, we're doing another Mad Cave show because he has two projects out there right now and more coming from them. So, what sparked the idea behind The Last Wardens, and how did it evolve with your collaborator, Elliot Spurl?
Yeah, so me and we have been working together for years on multiple titles, and we wanted to really have a range of a lot of different kinds of stories that we do. Last Wardens is a particularly interesting one because it went through multiple pretty substantial iterations. And when I say iterations, I mean name changes, character changes, time period changes, like a lot of world building. Like we've We've basically, and this is part of, it should be part of most creators' development process where you're allowing yourself to get some feedback, then refactor it, try different things until you kind of reach the sweet spot where you're like, I think this is the best version of this thing. And you know when it's the best version of the thing or when it's the ideal one for the time, because that's when you get the deal, ideally. So Last Wardens was always at its core a story about failure. I always talk about themes first. That story's theme is very front and center. It is about failure, how to chew it up, spit it out, and ask for seconds, right? That's kind of how we describe it. And it was always at its core about a team of dysfunctional anti-heroes, kind of heroes, this like remnant of an old order that are trying to protect the world from all of these dangers, not because they necessarily want to, but because there is a goal that each and every one of them is looking to obtain or achieve. And it was always a few elements were always part of this story, which were all of the wardens, this team of heroes that gets sent to fight these like anomalies and these monsters, are always kind of not Suicide Squad like, but they are in a sense prisoners because their leader is being extremely coy about what it knows about them, what happened to them. All of them have been affected by something, right? That had turned them into what they are. Their leader claims to have a lot of answers. Their leader is called Riddle, and it's this nebulous illusionist that essentially communicates with them psychically through these like very grandiose illusions. There's very little trust in this team, and they're all trying to figure each other out, get their own goals, but also investigate who the hell is this puppet master that's sending us on these missions? Are they a friend or foe? Those elements were always part of Last Wardens in all of its iterations, like the idea of an old cult or an old order, the idea of these like monstrosities and supernatural things that invade our world. One of the biggest changes, there were a few like drastic changes that we implemented into this over time. One of the most drastic ones was actually something that shocks a lot of people to hear, which is Danielle Pryor, who's the main hero of the story. Because she has become, since the series came out, really the heart of the entire franchise. And people respond very, very strongly to her as a protagonist, which we were very happy about. And they're kind of shocked to find out that originally she wasn't even part of the story at all. She didn't even exist. So when you have a character that has this kind of a strong personality and focus around her, it is kind of baffling to hear, like, wait, so how would this work without her? But the truth is, it was always
So
when we
tell
started
me.
about this entire world. And what we ended up finding is, hey, and it's pretty obvious in retrospect, a POV character, somebody who acts kind of as the audience proxy, someone that you can relate to, that this world collides with and gets dragged into it in the most tragic way possible. So that's how Last Wardens always went. And it was always supposed to be part-time horror, part-time action, and just a lot of dysfunction and tragedy and subtle humor, subtle dry humor.
You have a very eclectic way of approaching projects because you have so many different genres that you like to tackle. Do you do that because you have a message or just because you want to try things that are different?
Definitely, I mean, you know what? I was gonna say definitely the latter, kind of both. So I'll start with the latter one. Yes, always trying to experiment with a lot of different genres because I do think it just makes me better over time because it forces me to examine what works about each genre and then how I can disrupt it, right? Or how I can, in a sense, make it my own version of it. I never want to create something that has already existed and feels exactly like something else. I want to have my own voice instilled into it. Um, a good way of doing it is also trying to essentially almost reverse engineer, hey, what works about horror? What do people enjoy about horror? What do I enjoy or not enjoy about horror? How would I fix it? How would I make it my own? So that's just true across the board. In terms of statement, there is in every project I always, even in my when I pitch something to a publisher or to a network or to anybody, there's always somewhere in there a slide or a paragraph talking about the theme or the statement. So there's always something to say. And I think I've referenced this when I talked about Edenfrost before, but the idea of form follows function, right? If this is my statement, what is the best A, character, story, setting, but also genre to tell it, right? And a story about failure, right? And in a genre of horror, that just makes sense and it opens up the a lot of different possibilities from a storytelling perspective. So if you're a fan of horror, if you like the atmosphere, if you like all of that, and you're adding on top of it this element, you can create very interesting products as long as you anchor yourself to that statement.
How did you wind up with this project at Mad Cave once again? And where does it fit into the Mad Cave catalog of books?
Yeah, we, me and Elliot pitched multiple titles to Mad Cave at around the same time. It was like an 8 months period when they were trying to figure out what to do next. And both I pitched them Eden Frost individually, and we together also went with the last Wardens. And at some point, they just made the call of like, you know what, we're gonna do both. So the honest truth is, we just got two contracts at the same time, which was very fortunate. We didn't work on them at the same time because, we want to finish one and then move on to the script of the next. Uh, but it all happened pretty much all at once, and it opened up a very good relationship, a very good working relationship with them and their team. Because once we wrapped up the script, I wrapped up the script on Eden Frost, we immediately moved on and started working on The Last Word. And so and it was with the same editor, right? Like James B. Emmett, who is a godsend, right? And we basically ended up developing a very efficient work process and very good work dynamic and a very good like marketing pipeline. So it was just kind of, opportunity based. We ended up having this conversation with them. It ended up going all the way to the finish line at the same time. Where it fits into the Mad Cave family, I don't really know. I mean, they have a lot of fantastic horror titles. This is just one of them, and it's got its own unique spin on things. So I think if you are a fan of a lot of their like, short form limited series horror outings, then this definitely fits under that category.
So, is it because you have a unique way of selling yourself, or just the products are so unique? But how did get two projects at Mad Cave like almost at the same time
Um,
without selling your
Probably,
soul?
probably not for me to answer, right? Like it's kind of weird because I'm not the one who makes the final call. So you would probably be better poised, like asking anyone between like Mike Martz to Mark Irwin to anybody on their exec team of like, why did you say yes to this madman? So I can't answer that. I can only theorize. Um, I've known Mark from before Mad Cave Studios. Not well, but we've known each other through mutual friends. And when I reached out, we were already working with humanoids. Both me and Elliot are experienced industry professionals. They bring a lot of our own kind of institutional knowledge to the table. And I think that certainly appealed to them because they realize we can learn a lot from each other. They also recognize we're very hardworking people, we're very pragmatic. And we tell interesting stories. So I would like to think that a big part of it is that we came in really knowing our shit. And this is something I do take pride in. When we do presentations, we try consciously to make everything that came to the executives that, like we were pitching to look like shit. And I don't mean by story, but I literally mean presentation. Because we are craftspeople, because we are designers, we're not just writers. We make everything really flashy. I have a lot of experience presenting and doing pitches, both in front of executives, in front of like VCs. Like I've done this a lot throughout my career. So we do come in with a few unfair advantages where you just end up being very polished and you lean hard into it. Because I do believe that for us as people coming into the field from not a different industry, but like an adjacent one. But essentially, like I said before, you have like 15 years of experience, but as a creator, you're still new. You need to prove yourself. And I feel that like I can't come in with an entitled approach of like, ah, yes, but I've got all these years and I have all these big TV credits. Like it doesn't matter, right? I am new here. I need to show them that I'm not just on par, that I can be better than anybody else, and this is the quality level that I'm gunning for. So anybody that usually sees my presentation understands what I'm talking about, but we go really hard on the sell, not in terms of overcompensating, just in terms of like, let me show you why you should let us run this. And we do bring a lot of that work ethic into our work process as well, because we're very punctual, we're very accurate. We're used to working in very, like big teams and small teams alike. And I'm also used to managing people and managing resources. So there's just a lot that we bring to the table that A feels like, hey, you know what? If we take on these people, no matter what, we have a feeling that we're going to get something that's good and that the process is going to feel smooth and that whether it's the most successful thing or the biggest failure, we're not going to feel bad about it. And I think that's important for anybody that's supposed to take a risk on you.
We talked about this before, but the marketplace is very much superhero centric. Why should these superhero fans branch out and support other projects, for example, like The Last Warden?
I don't think anybody should be shamed for not doing it if it's not their thing. And I know this is like very counterproductive to like, hey, you're trying to sell a thing. I know, but I also don't think you can force anybody uh to read or consume anything that they're not into. I think if you are a reader that loves a specific kind of genre and you do have a curiosity about what else is out there, you should follow up with that curiosity. It doesn't mean you're giving up on, hey, you want this month's Batman, you want this month. That's all fine. But if you do have that openness and curiosity, give it a chance because there is an entire world out there of really different voices, amazing creators doing a lot of different types of work that are different from what you're used to. But you have to have that curiosity. And if you don't, that's okay. Then you can stick to whatever releases appeal to you more. So my appeal would be if you're somebody who always looks at those things and goes like, should I? But I don't know the creator. I don't know. It's worth it. If you feel like you're really drawn to something, take that leap, right? Because I do think that by the end of it, most people will feel good about it, especially because people are not that impulsive about buying something that they don't know. They can be very impulsive if they're, you trust a brand. Like it's another Marvel title, whether it's shit or not. I trust Marvel, so I'm going to assume at the very least that I'm going to get something that I want out of it. And when you're going into a publisher that you don't know as well, or a creator that is an unknown, there's a feeling of risk. Whether justified or not, there's a feeling of perceived risk that you have to get over. So my recommendation is try every once in a while to get over it. See where it takes you.
So, who's the artist in this project, and what type of work collaboration did you have with the artist?
Yeah, so we had multiple artists. Like this project had kind of an extensive team. Rui Silveira, Brazilian, he did all the line art, so like anything from like sketches to pencils and character designs. And they were based on earlier designs that Elliot actually did when we did our own earlier iterations. So he kind of had a foundation to iterate on. But he did a remarkable job. It's got a very unique look that is only elevated by the color work of Francesco Segala, who's Italy based. incredible colorist. If you flip through the pages of Last Wardens, we went pretty experimental with how we wanted to tell this story, to the point where we were trying to kind of break down the comic format itself. And those two artists were they were good sports because we asked them for stuff that constantly forced they weren't able to autopilot anything or just stick to their comfort zone. We were constantly asking them for pretty ambitious things that they managed to visualize spectacularly. So it has a very gritty but almost like explosive, sometimes gory, and sometimes very intimate tone. It kind of goes all over the place depending on the scene. And I see this a lot in shows, like if I'm a guest in Fan Expo or something like that. When somebody starts flipping through The Last Wardens, there is always a moment of like, whoa, right? They kind of like get thrown off because there are really impactful images in there, and the just execution of color theory from Francesco makes everything feel like this very immersive experience, is the only way I can describe it.
So we talked about this last time. You're kind of unique in creators because you're not an American creator and you're not a British creator. You grew up in Israel, Tel Aviv, and not to put you like in this box, but does that experience of being from Israel kind of like weave and thread itself through all your projects and how if it does?
That I am not sure how to answer that. I think it's I can say no, like, from my perspective, I never try to have it impact anything. It's not a there's no conscious effort because I don't really write anything that is political, and I think I'm an outlier in almost everything that I do or how I view the world in general. I think no matter how much I try to escape it, my own upbringing in my own familial bubble, my own neighborhood, my own life path, it's gonna impact your work. Like it's inevitable. Um, and every once in a while, I do get like a moment of like, why did I write this line? Why did I frame this character this way? And yeah, I don't think, or at least, again, I don't know if I'm objective about this. I don't think my nationality really comes into play very often into anything that I do, but I do think contextually how the setting I was placed in, how the setting where I grew up certainly affected how my personality is or how I view the world or how I approach a lot of different situations. Because, no secret, I have kind of a big personality. And that is something that is very inherent to where I come from, this directness, this bluntness, sometimes to the level of incivility. So that certainly sips into the work some very, very much subconsciously. But it never comes from like me feeling like I need to consciously do it. I try to think of my stories as character focused as possible. So if I'm telling a story about Danielle Pryor who lives in the town of Lakewood 1975, I need to be in the mindset of I am Danielle Pryor in 75 in Oregon in this setting, and this is my life's context. I can't try to consciously shove my own biases into it because I have to be her. But can I say that some of it doesn't leak in some way that I'm not aware of? No, probably not. That's going to be arrogant of me to say. But it's never a conscious effort.
So do you go out of your way to be eclectic and eccentric, or is that just part of your quirky nature as a creator?
Man, that feels like 50% judgment,
That
50%
that came out a
curiosity.
little harsh. I apologize, but it wasn't meant as an insult because you have this wide range of things that you do, and I'm just trying to like get a pulse of, do you have this wheel of fortune wheel that you spin? This time around, I feel like being whatever because you are a very unique voice. I'm just trying to figure out how you figure out, what you do.
Yeah, no, it is a valid question. I took no offense. I think a lot of what I do and this like experimental nature of trying a lot of the different things and really trying to master them, not just kind of like touch them a little bit and then run away and say, "Yay, I did it." I think a lot of that is very immigrant mentality, and I come from a family of immigrants. And this has been something very formative in my household. My mom is a business owner to this day. My dad was a doctor, but he was very entrepreneurial in everything that he did. So that form of very structured, very iterative, but very calculated hustle definitely sipped into how I operate. Because I don't I don't really act on impulse, right? So when I make these choices, it's usually very calculated. I look at like, here are the things that I have in my network. Here are the tools that I have in my disposal. Here are the opportunities. And then this is the thing that I passionately really want to do. How do these things fit together? So it is very oddly analytical and calculated, but then the actual passion is what I put into the work itself. So it's I always talk about it as like the producer mindset versus the creator mindset that you always have to switch between. That is a very immigrant story. And I do come from a startup nation. So I can deny it all I want, but no, this is definitely something that was instilled into me. Aside from that, my big personality, I think that's just me. I've always been loud and bombastic and kind of like a walking cartoon that has never that ever went away. And I think a lot of animators are tend to be like that. But combine those two things and you get whatever the hell this is.
Amit Tishler from The Last Wardens, Mad Cave Studios. Thanks so much for joining me again for another show. I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.